Our next speaker is Dr. Surya Sna. I'm not pronouncing your name, Dr. Surya Rat, who's a Network Director, Operations in Charge, Consultant Ophthalmologist, Ophthalmic Plastic Surgery and Facial Aesthetics, and Ocular Oncology from Bhubaneswar LV Prasad Eye Institute. And he is going to talk on his interesting case with a dilemma. And I would invite Dr. Milind to discuss this case after the presentation is done. On to you, Doctor.
Thank you. And I just want to check whether everybody can see the slide and I'm audible.
Yes, yes.
Great. So I think a very good background, and I'll just quickly jump onto what I have because we were wanting to talk something on a dilemma. So this is a lady who, and I've got a picture there, who presented and on a first look looks absolutely fine. And then she tells me that I've got this lesion in my, I think you people can see my cursor. There's a small lesion out there. And this has been actually growing. And this is actually a recurrent lesion. It's been growing for the last 4 months. I had gotten it operated elsewhere about a year ago. And she was carrying a histopath report. And what I saw there was quite, sort of a shock that it was mentioned that this was a poorly differentiated carcinoma or could be even a malignant melanoma. And this was all before COVID, actually, I'm talking about 2019. And just quickly that her visual acuity and others and anterior segment and posterior segment were unremarkable. If you take a quick look at a closer look, rather, it looks very much like a hypertrophic scar. And you do see the scar a little more medially. The lesion was about 8 millimeter by 6 millimeter in size. The skin could not be pinched. So it was very much contained within the skin, the lesion there. And there was no ulcer, didn't have a punctum or a hair shaft, things that you don't look out for. And a regional lymphadenopathy was all normal. Now, if you just kind of look at with the background that we've had today, so this, I've already touched about the history and what were the relevant things. Now, I think one thing which was very, very interesting was the fact that the prior biopsy definitely was a flag that there was some sort of somebody, had actually thought that this was a malignant lesion. And whereas on the lookout, it looked like a very, lesion and the only history that it was. If you're thinking about a malignant melanoma, now, we all know from the clinical course that it usually takes. Now, no self-respecting melanoma would be lying there for a year with not much happening and a little bit of progression. When we looked at it, it was essentially a small papule and there was an adjacent scar. We did a systemic workup and she was on an ultrasound abdomen pelvis and otherwise it was all good. So keeping that, I thought that we're probably looking some sort of an adnexal malignancy because it can happen in the skin anywhere and possibly a benign, but there was a gradual progression that she did mention. And then especially in the West, I've seen some lesions in the basal cell, which look very much like this. And then they, come out as basal cell. So based on all this kind of a background, we thought what we'll do is we'll actually excise. It's a simple lesion to excise. We'll probably do a margin control. And that's what we did. And think about an eyelid reconstruction. Quick picture, we took out the lesion, we took out margins, we sent for our pathologists and fortunately the margins were all clear and we were able to reconstruct it. Now coming to the pathology. Now Kaustuv is there, he might want to add to what I'm saying, but essentially on the big thing was the epidermis was all clear, was all good. And what you had was actually pockets of epithelial cells in the dermis. And these were nests and cords of cells. On a little higher magnification, what you had was these cells, which had actually a peripheral palisading, but this was also again focal. And the cells were actually tending to have a eosinophilic cytoplasm, or even some had a clear cell in them. And based on all that we are looking at, this is a little more higher magnification of this is 20x. And based on that, it looked like we were dealing with something which was definitely not an epidermal, which is like basal cell, squamous, and that we talked about, but could be something which is arising from the dermis or beyond and could be an adnexal. So our pathologist ran a IHC, and this is what the IHC, it was for the PANS cytokeratins, this was positive, and that's what you can see. But when she ran some others, it was significant that the S100 was negative, the HMB45 was negative, and the adipophilin was negative. So, you sort of excluding, melanoma, HMB45, you're excluding adipophilin, so sebaceous. And then she also did something, I forget the name, it was BR, I forget, but that's basically for basal cell. Because these kind of lesions, if you take, depending on the kind of sections you take, you may kind of sometimes have a little bit of confusion with the basal cell. And then she also wanted to exclude that. So all of this finally came to a diagnosis that this was a trichoblastic carcinoma, and this was a low grade based on the neoplastic behavior that she saw on the slides. Now, interestingly, trichoblastic is actually, so obviously it's something that arising from the hair follicles. And adnexal cell malignancies, this is basically from the germinal cells of the follicles. And we did a little bit of a literature search, and quite interesting. That's essentially turns out that only 93 of such patients, and this is not ophthalmology literature, so it's been reported, quite rare, but a large number actually happen in the head and neck and face region. So becomes important for us. And again, a large number, almost 90% are actually de novo. Some of them again arise from trichoepitheliomas and other lesions that may be there. But a very large number are de novo, and our case was something that she never had anything there. And looks like from that, the right thing to do was to do an excision, though not much of a consensus whether you should be doing an excision, what is the kind of margin that is needed. But the other thing that's also coming out is about 5% of them tend to have, metastasis and even adverse outcomes. So one needs to be looking out for them. This is, I've got a consent for the full face photograph. So this is how she looks after the reconstruction. And this is 2 years later. So before and after, but essentially the key points there, the big question was to do or not to do. But I think we gave credibility to the fact that there was an earlier report, which definitely was a flag. There was a history of a recurrence of a lesion at a site where a surgery had been done. There was definitely, these were pointers to the possibility that there's something that needed to be taken care of. It's a rare malignancy that we're dealing with, and looks like most of it is in the face and the neck. Outcome is generally good, and that's what we face. And we had a follow-up of 2 years. That's all I have. Thank you.
Very interesting case, Doctor. That was really nice. And shall we hear from Dr. Milind?
Hi, Surya, wonderful case. And this just highlights the fact that when you hear hoofbeats, sometimes it can be a zebra, although most of the times it will be a horse. So I don't have slides, but if Surya, you could reshare your first picture. I just made some mental notes of the findings. So this earlier surgery was in 2018 or 2019. So yes. To be frank, when I look at this photo, this just looks like a scar from an old trauma. I wouldn't have primarily suspected a tumor here unless we palpate it. But looking at the history, it's obvious that there was something which was excised. So definitely I would not think on lines of hypertrophic scar unless it was a trauma where I would suspect a foreign body embedded or something like that. Secondly, the skin looks normal. So if this were to be a squamous cell carcinoma or a basal cell carcinoma, you would see the central umbilication, pigmentation, and so forth. Squamous obviously might show keratin. So if at all there is anything here, it is either benign or it is, as you said, adnexal, it's dermis or beyond. And absence of pain definitely was a pointer towards a malignancy suspicion at her age and given the past history. So in view of the recurrence here, one would also want to know what is the posterior extent. So either you could palpate and see whether you are able to feel the lesion all around, in which case imaging is not really needed. Otherwise, one would at least want to do an immersion B scan or a UBM or even a CT scan just to know what's the posterior extent. And if these kind of lesions are really reaching up to anterior to mid orbit and equator of the eyeball, you could even have globe displacement, which is not really seen in her case. And so yes, the bottom line for me is I wouldn't have thought of it as a malignancy had I not known about the background. But once I palpate a mass there with a history of prior surgery with recurrence, I would pretty much go on the lines where Surya headed, absolutely having no clear idea what it would turn out to be. So that's the role of pathologist, and then thereafter the oncologist to tell us what is the best approach beyond this point. So I would stop applying my intellect at that point and recruit more people to decide what next to be done in a rare case like this. And the last pointer, Surya, just a little bit for the oculoplastic surgeons, what was that wonderful reconstruction that you did? Because it really looked brilliant post-op.
Well, that's a median forehead flap, Milind, and those eyelid margin was intact, and so.
Okay, those were my pointers here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that was wonderful, Dr. Surya and Dr. Milind, and even for a general ophthalmologist like us, it was an amazing discussion, learning for us.